A closely watched measure of inflation slowed in December. The personal consumption expenditures price index climbed 5% from a year earlier, slower than the reading last month. US inflation expectations extend retreat, buoy consumers' mood. And welcome back to the channel. I want to talk about inflation with you guys and also talk about car payments, which is kind of an interesting subject. And always fun to share this information with you. So if you take a look at this, you can see more headlines, right? Consumer spending fell 0.2% in December as inflation cooled. And this has sort of been the story of our market. You're getting all these mixed indicators, right? So yes, inflation is coming down, but also yes, too, consumers are spending less. So you're essentially seeing a weakening of demand, especially among consumers. But yes, personal consumption expenditures are down. This is the last couple of months, and this is right before the Fed is going to announce their rate hike. It's probably going to be 25 basis points, whatever they usually signal ahead of time is what it's going to be. And they are very, how can I say, controlled in what they say in public, and they basically send everyone out at the same time. One thing that's also been a thing as well, they've been signaling is that they're going to be keeping interest rates high for a while. How long is a while? Who knows? It could be throughout this year. And it's interesting because some people, you'll see on the internet and stuff like that, say that the Fed is going to be cutting rates. I don't see it myself because the Fed hasn't indicated that at all. They just said they're going to raise rates and keep them elevated until they see inflation more where they want to go. You can see this chart here. They want it to go at to 2%, which is that gold line right there. But we are elevated still. However, yes, inflation is slowing than when it was. And we'll keep an eye on said things. There's a lot of things going on in the world, and obviously, as well as too, which I've mentioned several times in this channel, if you're out of a job and stuff like that, it doesn't matter what the numbers say. You're struggling in your neck of the woods. One thing that is also too worth mentioning is the debt ceiling. You'll see there's a fight over this, but I think we have until June is my understanding. So they'll most likely raise it. However, you never know because it doesn't happen until it happens. But do keep an eye on these kind of things because it certainly matters to the U.S. economy, and you don't want the USA defaulting. Speaking of other changes going on, this is an interesting one. Amazon is actually going to be charging for grocery delivery now. This actually matters, and the term would be shrinkflation. The basic idea is that you are paying the same price that you paid before, but getting lesser value. In this case, you're paying the same price, say, for Amazon Prime, or even a little bit more, because I think they might have raised prices. However, they're going to start charging you a delivery fee for groceries. So the basic gist of it, what is it here? So orders under $50, it's like a $9.95 a delivery fee. $50 to $100, they'll charge you $6.95, and then orders from $100 to $150, they'll charge you $3.95 a delivery fee. And obviously for Amazon, they don't want to go underwater in their deliveries, and I've had Prime, and I think you probably have as well if you're watching this. Usually when you look at the numbers, it's like pretty much everyone in USA has Amazon Prime because, when you get free delivery, it's a big cost saver. But obviously when fuel rates are going up and also say, worker wages, it's expensive for Amazon to do that. And so they got to charge a fee for that. So that's just worth mentioning that, again, with inflation, oftentimes companies will pass the cost on to you. The headline, right? Americans fall behind on car payments at higher rate than in 2009. And this is something that we've been talking about a lot in this channel. What are consumers doing? How are they doing with their bills and stuff like that? Are they making enough money? And we've also talked about real wages as well, because yes, some jobs and some workers have been getting pay raises, but is it enough to cover their daily expenses? So evidently, though, people are falling behind on their car payments, and it's actually quite interesting. I was reading through some of the stuff where essentially, I've never had this happen, but I guess it's a thing where you can just wake up one morning and I guess the bank will just come and take your car away. I don't know exactly how that works. I guess you can just tow a car and have it taken away. If you guys ever had this experience or had a friend who had this, please share. I was reading the article. They were just saying like, you miss your payments and then you just wake up and your car is gone because they take it away. And then I guess if you want to get it back, you got to pay them like $1,600, fee. I've had a friend who had a problem with the with those kind of tow truck companies before, and this is true story. In my opinion, I think the tow truck companies are kind of mafia in a way, and anyone who had experience with this, you probably know. They basically take your car and they put it like in a car prison, like true story. It has like barbed wire all around it and stuff like that. And the friend that I had who had to try to get his car, and I can't remember why it was in there. I think he might have got a speeding ticket, or I don't remember exactly the reason, but in order for him to get his car, no, I know what it was. It was a parking ticket, and they just towed it away from, like, he's parked in the wrong spot. And then for order for him to get the car back, he had to prove that he owned the car. But get this, the paperwork that proves that he owned the car was in the car. So, and they don't let you go get the car. So then he had to, like, call the DMV in another state and then have that DMV print up and mail stuff. But that takes like a couple weeks. Then you got to pay a fine. It's a mafia, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But that's the car impounding thing. But there was a thing that was interesting. I was looking at, like, how much people are paying for car payments, because this is also a reflection of inflation. It was actually much higher than I had imagined. I don't look at these numbers all the time. This is sort of why I'm sharing with you. And like, this is an older headline from November, right? Average monthly payment hit, new car hit all-time high. And you can actually look at the numbers in particular. So here, this is the most recent numbers that I found. So if you are, I believe that is a, what is this? WTD average loan payment. Okay, so on loans, your average payment is $785. And then on a lease, I guess it is $661. So I'd be curious if you guys can confirm that those seems about the right numbers that people are paying. Also, too, look at this. This is in 2022. New vehicle loan payments monthly is about $700. That's up from $618 in 2021. So that's a big jump. That's a 13.3% jump. Used vehicles, right? You can see average payment is $525. 472 was in 2021, and that's 11% jump. And then you have leases jumped up 12%. Also, too, which is really interesting, is you can actually compare what these sort of average amounts that people are borrowing. So for new cars, it's about $41,000. Interest rate's about 5% is the average. On used cars, it's $28,000 is what people are, well, actually 20.5, and they're borrowing at 9.34%. The thing that really shocked me, true story, I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize this, was that I guess loans are like 69 months these days on new cars, and used cars loans are 68 months. So that was a pretty shocker to me. I need to make more videos about this, like, evidently, because this is my opinion on this, and I don't think it's a crazy opinion. Just pay cash for cars, and if you can't pay cash for your car, get a cheaper car. I've said that all along, and I will continue to say that, because I don't think it's great to get a loan of 9% on an asset that's depreciating. I don't think that's a great move, and that's just my opinion on that. It's just numbers. But I didn't know people were doing 68 months. That's really long, especially on a depreciating asset. So that was news to me. So if you guys knew about this thing, please let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. This was coming in from Cox. So they're one of the big automotive, I guess you call it, retailers in the country, and they had 10 predictions for 2023. So the number one prediction is that as you can see right here, a slow growing economy will place pressure on the automotive market. So for those people, because we talk about Tesla on this channel, who are Tesla boys and girls, pumpers, this is just real. It's not just Tesla that may struggle. It could be all the car market due to sort of what's going on with retailers, or I should say consumers and retail. It's the same thing. But the other thing too, which is related to that, is Intel had a horrible earnings report. If you've been reading the headlines here, look at this. It's funny. Well, not funny to Intel people, of course. Intel suffers historically bad quarter on weak PC demand and competition. And it just shows you that, you got to know what you're doing when you're in this stuff. Intel would be considered a classic value trap. So if you look at the numbers, it seemed like, okay, they pay a dividend, they have a low PE, it seemed like they'd be okay. But you got to know who the CEO is. You got to kind of know what industry you're in, and sort of know where you are. The negatives for Intel, essentially, I remember, and I mentioned several times on the channel, they lost their contract with Apple. They're getting a lot of pressure from Taiwan Semi. They're getting beat by AMD and NVIDIA. They're kind of not in a good position. The positive for Intel is to be a positive one. They have government backing, so certainly Biden and his team have been trying to back Intel, and they were announcing building plants, which is a heavy investment, right? So that's going to weigh on their stock. I believe they're building in Ohio. I'm not sure if they're building in Arizona or not. But this has just been awful for Intel. And it's funny because Intel was basically a meme stock back in the dot-com bubble. For true story. I mean, I remember this when I was a kid, and there used to be TV commercials for Intel all the time. It was the hot company, and they have been a stalwart for a while, but just lately they just haven't been that great. And for people who are computer, people, you would probably have opinions on whether or not, why Intel is struggling compared to compared to the other brands. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Also, relation to retail slash consumers, because remember, PC sales are down, so that really hurts companies like Intel. Hasbro is cutting workers 15%. So Hasbro is an interesting one. Me personally, I always thought Hasbro would be pretty good in terms of like sort of just company, but I remember, I believe their CEO died recently, and we talked about this on the channel, and so there was always concerns around that, and there were also concerns about how they were handling Wizards of the Coast, which is their Dungeons and Dragons, and their Magic, the Gathering, which is a card game, which I do like that card game, which is part of their product. So evidently, though, Christmas sales didn't come out as good as they thought. They're still making money in their digital realm. So because essentially, right, if you can buy and sell video games, basically, you're not shipping products, right? But when you're shipping like these kind of things, like toys, I'm just looking at this picture here, like say like the Power Ranger thing. You're talking about a fairly large item. It's lightweight, but your margins aren't so great, whereas your margins are much better on digital. So they're taking a hit over there, both in consumers aren't necessarily spending so much, and their costs are going up. And this reminds me of, and I mentioned this before in a previous video, how much of our market these days is not real. What I mean by that is, if you think Shark Tank is real, right, it's not. and our markets are kind of like that as well. Because unfortunately, this is just how the world is. In the financial world, telling people hopes and dreams and lies and stuff like that is worth a lot of money. It really is. And so, I try my best just to like literally to show you guys real numbers and talk about real truth. I mean, I could, make up a bunch of crap and just say, oh my God, Tesla, not Tesla, but Intel's the best thing ever and it's so awesome, etc. But I don't do that. I try my best just to show you like what's going on and sort of why I think things are happening. And so that's why I mentioned this whole Shark Tank thing, because I think unfortunately there's a lot of people who think Shark Tank is real, the same way they think Intel's going to make a bazillion dollars when it's clearly not. So that's why I go through the news with you guys every day, just to show you kind of what is happening in the real world, right? Just it's not my opinion, just stuff is happening. Like for example, the Adani thing, which was the billionaire in India. I guess their their shares went down like 19% in one day. Because when the short seller report came out and said, hey, it looks like Adani is a big, essentially a bubble. It's a big scam, the biggest con in corporate history, like crazy headlines. Evidently, someone had mentioned who was from India in the community saying that Adani's whole business model, and I read this before in articles, was basically, pump up your companies in stock, then sell it to other people. And then also you're pumping it up through leverage on banks that are backed by the government, and you have good relationship with the government. And this is just going back to the Shark Tank thing of how much of the world is corrupt. It's just the reality of how it is. It's because we're dealing with money, and unfortunately that's just the way that it is. And it's a crazy thing because it is true you can make money trading, be it Tesla, be it Bed Bath and Beyond. But at the end of the day, things tend to trade on fair value. Like, for example, here, Bed Bath & Beyond, I was just looking at the headline. It says, Bed Bath & Beyond falters in effort to find buyer in bankruptcy. So chances are they're going to go bankrupt. It's interesting because I haven't been to Bed Bath & Beyond for years, and I'd love to hear anyone's thoughts. If you've actually been to a store recently, I just haven't been in one. But I'm assuming, we still have to buy pillows and beds, bedding and these kind of things. But I myself either get stuff from Amazon, right, or just go to department store. So I think Bed Bath & Beyond's in a weird spot to where there's just maybe no place for them. And I just want to mention a couple other things in the news. I don't cover this stuff too heavily on this channel because I try to stick with business mostly if I can. But I want to just mention that I do read the news, and I want to acknowledge that this stuff is happening. So unfortunately, there was another killing regarding a black person and also the police. This is Tyree Nichols, I believe is the name, and they're going to release body cam footage. My opinion is always the same on this kind of stuff. I reserve judgment until I see the evidence for myself, and I think that's a fair thing to say. Unfortunately, we live in the world where people just have their mind made up before seeing any evidence. So the evidence so far, that I guess they released the family and they're pretty upset. So I haven't seen it for myself, but I am aware of the stuff, and I'm trying to be fair on these kind of things. The same way, for example, I saw that there were shootings in California. There was like a couple. I believe these people are Chinese, it looks like, and I guess they're farm workers and stuff like that. So this is actually a rare occurrence. Usually you don't see like this particular person doesn't really fit the profile. Like, you know, it just doesn't. This is like an old person plus he's Asian. You usually don't see this kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I think this just represents that both the police one and this one is just USA is a violent place. And I myself don't like to deal with this stuff, and it's just not something I want to deal with. That's all. That's just my opinion. That I hope no one out there like really enjoys this kind of things. And you know, it reminds me of this one as well, which you can find the footage. There's footage out there. They released the body cam footage of the Pelosi attack. This is on Paul Pelosi, and there was a lot of people spreading misinformation. There's a lot of just basically, unfortunately, just I don't know how to say it, just bad people out there just like making joke about this kind of stuff. And I don't make joke about these violent things. It's not good. So you know, if you're interested in the tape, I'm not going to play it here, but you can watch it. It's pretty bad. And also too, there was a lot of misinformation regarding this stuff. So with any of these things, be it the market, be it shootings or anything like that, just go with facts and evidence, and that's all I have to say. I was looking at this as well regarding, you know, staying safe and stuff like that. This was a crazy one. The State Department issues warning for travelers taking Ubers in Cancun. Like what? So evidently, I was reading through this. I guess the taxis and the Uber people down there in Cancun are like fighting with each other, and sometimes it's like physically violent. And there's warnings of, you know, if you're American, like don't get involved with these kind of fights. It was like, what the heck? I myself have never been interested in. I just haven't. My wife and we talked about. I don't know. We just never been interested in going to Cancun and these kind of things. If I'm going to go to the beaches, I just myself. I prefer more like say like a Spain or a Thailand or Vietnam. I don't know. Just it's Mexico's never been safe, in my opinion. Although to be fair, I really do like Mexican food quite a bit. I really do. So I would love to visit for the food, but you know, I've heard of like places like Mexico City is like really, really unsafe. And I also know too, there was like a show called Narcos, I believe it was called. I think it was like a Netflix show, or I can't remember the name, but it was one of those shows where like their location manager, because they would film the TV show in like dangerous gang controlled areas, or mafia or cartel's a better word, cartel controlled areas, like their location manager got killed. So some places are just unsafe. And you know, it reminds me when I saw this last one here, where you know, this is Goldman Sachs CEO. He's getting a pay cut 30%, but he's still making 25 million a year. Is that, you know, some people are still going to get theirs, right? And this reminds me, and sort of why I mentioned you guys several times out there, is you know, focus on having really good job skills, getting a good career. And yes, we do follow the markets, and yes, we follow this stuff together, but it's so unreliable right now, and the indicators are tough to read. And also too, you know, figure out ways to make sure you can pay down those variable loan interests, because it's hurting a lot of people who have cars right now. So I mentioned the car payment thing, and also too, like I said, pay cash for cars. I don't think it's a crazy thing to say. There's going to be a lot of turmoil this year, I think is the best way to say it. Because even if Goldman guy, if he's getting a pay cut, imagine what happens to the regular workers. And I guess over at Goldman, people were like in the company, they were saying that they were always speculating, and a lot of rumors going around, how much is the CEO getting paid, how much is he getting paid, and stuff like that. But yes, he is getting a pay cut as well. So that doesn't bode great for lower workers if CEOs are also getting pay cuts. And I think Tim Cook also got a pay cut going into this year. So that's my thoughts on everything. Hopefully everything is okay with you guys and you have a great weekend. And this has been your daily news.